So today on the New How podcast, I have Justin Kaplan, Director of Development at Odin Properties. Odin Properties, since 2019 when Justin came on board, focus on acquisition and development with a specific focus on affordable housing. Since then, Odin's delivered 200 units, currently has about 170 under construction and nearly 300 units in pre-construction. Welcome, right. Justin Kaplan.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in and spending some time with me today. I'm excited. You're the first director of development for a major development company that I've had on, and I want today for the guests, I want them to learn what someone in your shoes does on a daily basis, what we get into, and then how the hell did you even get into this? Like why how are you doing this on such a grand level? And I'm excited to dive in. So let's get to it. So it says here you went to California University of Pennsylvania. Is that the West Coast version of UPenn, or what is that?
That's something like that. Maybe it's a state school out in a tiny little town called California, PA, about 30 minutes south of Pittsburgh.
I love it. And you went for business and industrial organization psychology.
That's right.
What is that?
I think of it as a fancy way to say human resources. Right?
Okay.
It's a study of productivity and business growth and the psychology of business.
So like understanding what it takes to run business, the people in these businesses, like everything.
That's right. It was a lot of statistics, a lot of productivity, a lot of case study on what drives productivity and how to increase productivity without increasing pay, and different incentives that drive human behavior.
So everyone has a story about how they went to college for what they went to. I personally went to college for architecture because I didn't want to read and write, and I didn't like engineering. I was like, oh, I'll never have to read and write. Now all I do is read and write. Why did you go to college for this?
It's funny that you say that. So I actually, in high school, took a lot of drafting classes.
Okay.
And found and developed a passion for architecture and real estate, and was going to go to school for architecture. And then I found out 4 years of college.
Lots of black coffee later and sleepless nights.
Several hours of learning from folks, taking additional years of master's programs and studying for tests. And they told me it'd be like 14 years before I got my license.
I'll give you a little insight to what you missed. You essentially go into a bubble for 5 years and you look around, you just see this bubble of things you can't do because you have to work all night in studio and learn how to physically understand space around you. And then you kind of just wake up and you're holding a diploma and you go, let's see what I can get into now. But you kind of did a little bit of a bubble. You mentioned here that you went to Taiwan. Talk about what Taiwan was and why
so after I had the joy of graduating in 2007, tried starting a business right away out of school. Did that for a year. Learned a lot about working with governments and red tape of running a business, but my friend and I, we had no experience, no money, and no real mentors, so we didn't get very far.
That's how everybody starts, right?
So from there, we're right in 2008, and I never got my architecture degree, so I was going on to the business side of things and the finance side of things, but all my friends were being laid off. So I wasn't even getting interviews at that point, let alone trying to find a job. And so I had an opportunity to go over to Asia and teach English.
I love it.
And I said, I'm not getting anything accomplished here in the US right now. And so what can I do that's going to better myself? What can I do that's going to expand me and put me out of my comfort zone and teach me a whole bunch of new things? So it was January 2009. And I had a friend who was already signed up for this program. I said, give me your itinerary and the program you're going to work for. If I can get in with you, I'm in. And February 2009, I was on a plane to Taiwan. I didn't even realize kind of where I was headed. I didn't give myself any time to think about it.
And you're teaching English to people that are trying to talk to me about who, is it just students that didn't have English before? They're trying to go to high school, college. What is it like? Who are they?
So it's a well-known program over in Asia. And so they have these after-school programs, and over there, generally, like a lot of kids here, go to soccer practice or go to, some extracurricular activity. A lot of children over there go to after-school English classes, right? And so they go to school all day. They go to a 2-hour cram school to study English because over there they have a English proficiency requirement. They have to pass English exams to pass high school. And so these are kids ranging from everything from kindergarten through high school.
If I had to get through Latin, if my Latin teacher's listening from high school, I'd still be stuck in high school if that was the requirement for me to get out of it. That's wild, though. That's giving back, right? Like there had to be a level of just satisfaction every day where like you're taking a student that can't even string a sentence together, and all of a sudden now they're graduating high school because of what you're helping them do.
It was a great experience in learning where my patience lies because I'm in a room trying to explain something to somebody who can't even understand the language I'm working in, right? And so you're starting at ABCs, and it shaped the way that I deal with people today because I learned a whole new level of patience.
I was going to say, right? It's gotta be patience. Yeah, that's great.
So it really ended up forming how I walk into a business meeting now, and having the patience to hear somebody out and work through negotiations. And
well, if you go into a meeting assuming that they can't speak English, your expectation,
you're already one step ahead of the game, right?
I mean, I wish that was a way you started thinking, but I try to, similar. It's like you gotta pretend like you're the, you don't know what people don't know, right? Like you have to put yourself in a position to not just assume that they are going to understand, right?
That's right.
And you
take it back to the most basic levels.
I love it.
And figure out, okay, how do we solve this? How do we move forward?
That's a little tidbit for people listening. I like that. That's new. All right. Teaching English. I'm trying to get us to where we're building hundreds of units. We're working our way
That's
there.
Right.
All right. So you leave this. You stay in Taiwan for 2 years. Do you
2 years.
Back? What
Yeah. So after 2 years, I come back and I'm trying to revisit. Okay, what's next? What's the next step? Sort of lost interest in finance after the collapse, and knew it wasn't no longer the path for me, but I still had the base understanding. I knew business and I knew real estate because I grew up around it. My dad ran a brokerage and appraisal shop for 40 years, and learned all of
building appraisals, like the whole
like doing appraisals and cost segregations and helping REITs when they transfer assets between one another and things like that. So I got a really good understanding of real estate, plus my love for architecture, and I'm like looking at like what's next. And so just talking with my dad, he said, look, go be a commercial broker.
Okay.
He's like, you'll see every aspect of the real estate business.
He wasn't kidding. Absolutely.
And so I took that as a stepping stone. And I went and got my license, and found a boutique brokerage shop in Philadelphia, and got hooked up with them and learned a ton from them along the way. And figuring out what I wanted to do within brokerage, I really started honing in on doing development transactions and seeing how that whole process played out. And through that, I ended up working with, owners who were developers. I worked with the architects to help get everything through the zoning process. And
because you don't get paid zoning hits.
No, I don't get paid till the deal closes. Exactly. So I had to make sure
that's good.
Every piece was in place, because if anything fell apart, I just spent months or even years working on a project with no paycheck. And so
I still feel like I do that today. That's all right.
So that was really how I got into the development side of real estate, was through the brokerage world. And so from there, I knew brokerage was never the end goal. I wanted to do it for 3 years, but for those in brokerage who know, if you're doing well, it is quite a lifestyle. And so it was hard to step away. But eventually I reached a level of burnout and knew it was time for the next step.
Nice. And then segue in Odin Properties, you joined Odin in 2019.
That's right.
Talk about that. Talk about who, the team over there a little bit and
Yeah. So actually Odin was one of my first transactions as a broker.
Oh, wow.
I sold Odin a 32-unit building in Germantown.
Love it.
And so I had known Odin for 6 or 7 years prior to moving over there, and it was kind of serendipitous. I was ready to make a move, and I'd heard they were looking, so I called them and said, "Hey, let's have a meeting. Let's discuss. I'm ready to be on."
I'm really good at speaking English.
Yeah.
That's awesome. No, that's great. So Odin Properties. So specifically, you guys focus on affordable housing, and then is that just in the Germantown area? Where is that at? Like, talk to me about
Yeah. So Odin actually formed back in 2009. And over the last 14 years, kind of grew into a medium-sized business, right? And as a company, we now have about 9,500 units across 13 states. And those are...
It's a lot of broken toilets.
A lot of broken toilets.
Awesome.
A lot of great maintenance guys helping fix those broken toilets.
That's awesome.
But we focus on like under-resourced markets. And so a lot of the assets that we own are either like naturally occurring affordable housing or a subsidized affordable housing with the capital A.
Gotcha. Good. And then and you're doing, I'm sure, a lot of this with the tax credit stuff too, because there's, in some of these areas they're providing QOZ funds, things like that, right? So it has to be around that, or...
Yeah, so we're a lot of what we've done or have worked on has been more on what is naturally occurring affordable housing. So we're able to acquire assets at a good basis. We have great relationships with contractors where we can keep our costs low. And then we try to provide a moderate finish so that we can keep our prices in the affordable range, right? And the goal is to provide housing. And I'll give a quick, perfect example of a project we recently completed in West Philadelphia that Design Blends helped do the work on.
DB,
right? So this was a project at the corner of 63rd and Jefferson, right? It was a fire burned out building that we worked with the owners to pick up at a very attractive basis. And then we took this building back to its original 69 apartments. And we did that in a way where we could keep the rents attractive to the folks who were already based in the neighborhood, right? That specific neighborhood hadn't seen a lot of new product come on, and the product that was there was 60s and 70s product that nobody really had kind of given a lot of attention to. So one of the ways we're able to keep the cost down is when we're thinking about designing these buildings, like I'm not putting a rooftop pool in there, not putting a golf simulator, right? I'm providing quality housing.
Those are cool things, though, but you can't do them in every project.
Can't do them in every project, and not everybody needs them, right? So, we're focused more on the folks who are just looking for quality housing.
And a place they can call their own, and a place that they can build families out of. That's awesome. Walk me through. So what I'm just curious is like, all right, do you see every property that Odin's dealing with? Like, are you traditionally going on site and looking at them?
So I'm going on sites for new acquisitions and development projects.
All right. Justin Kaplan shows up in a car. You see the building. Talk to me. Like, what are 5 things you're initially looking at when you visit these properties? From like, it's not data and numbers aside. What do you want to feel when you're there looking at property? Give the listeners a sense of like, when you're going and looking at these 60, 70 unit buildings, what do you want to see?
Yeah, the first thing I do is walk around the outside of the building. All right. What can we put here, right? The specific details aside, we know we're going to put housing, but what does the neighborhood look like? If I were to deliver this building today, can I actually lease these units? Right. And so I'm looking like, what's the walkability to local public transit?
You're giving out walkability scores?
Those are, top secret. I know.
That's awesome.
Google has a lock on those.
That's great.
But no, so we're looking at like, okay, how easy is public transportation?
Mm-hmm.
How easy is it a food desert, or is there easy access to food? What is the is it more residential? Is there a park? Is there a dog park? Is there something for people to do close by? What's the overall feel of the neighborhood? And so, like, can I lease these units today, or do I see a path to being able to lease units here a year or 2 years from now when the project's complete?
Gotcha. So you're trying to put yourself 24 months ahead. Is this neighborhood or area going to be viable for, affordable housing product in 24 to 36 months?
You got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that takes a certain level of just empathy and just like experience and
okay. That's right. It's a mix of experience and also just putting yourself in the shoes of the resident. Like,
if you don't want to live there, someone else probably might not want to live there.
That's right. Yeah. Like, do I have easy access to daily essentials that will make this a livable building?
The question everyone wants to know: what the hell is going on with the current market?
If I knew that answer, we'd probably be having a very different conversation, or we'd be sitting somewhere else right now.
Well,
but
like, are you guys changing strategy? Like, talk to me about, like, everyone knows where interest rates are today. Everyone sees that banks are tightening up from what they're willing to lend. Like, how are deals getting done right now, or are deals getting done? Like, what are your feelings and thoughts on some of that?
It's really, really complicated to make deals work today, right? The numbers don't work the way they did. And so you have to really be disciplined and focused and think about, like, what are the strategic ways in which I can create a capital stack that actually works for this project. And one of the ways we're doing that now is we're taking our naturally occurring affordable housing model and taking it to the next step and looking at how do you bring in public money to a deal in a way that the deal still works. The challenge is the red tape associated with those and the time it takes to put a deal together, right? So if I start something today, it could be, in a best case scenario, I'm 3 to 4 years out from being able to deliver a product.
Exactly.
And that's if everything goes right the first time through.
Yeah. No, that's you're right. I mean, I'm seeing, it's a lot of shiny objects that are getting tossed in emails and brochures, and I'm seeing it on Zillow listings and Instagram brokers posting stuff up. But, like, I look at it too, and I'm just like, what the hell's going on? Like, I now need $3 million equity check when before you might need $1 million equity check. Like, it's crazy what's happening. And I know a lot of people are struggling to navigate it.
You can break it down even more simple, right? The average homeowner, right? Even just in, like, 2020, right? A couple of years ago, they $75,000 as a family household income could buy the average house. Then today, right, with the current interest rates and what it takes to buy that same home, you now need, I just read the article, about $141,000 a year to be able to do and buy that same home.
It's crazy. Because
the average mortgage payment right now is just over $2,200 a month with the interest rate. So, it's taken a lot of people out of the housing market and put them into the renter pool.
The one fear, the next question was talk about the future a little bit. Let's bridge that gap. So, from what I see on my front, where, clients used to come to us, let's do all these single family houses ground up, 30 houses in a community, right? Those are few and far between right now. So what I predicts about that, and again, I want your prediction because we're allowed to be wrong here. This is trying to predict the future. If we could predict the future, we'd be in much better places where we are than today. Everyone would, right? But my prediction is that you think housing is expensive now, it's going to get even more expensive. I actually think if you're not into a home within the next 6 months, you might never see one, at least in home ownership, because the lack of inventory that's going to be there, right? My clients aren't doing single family houses like they once were. They're not going, let's put 90 houses, or here's a pack of 30 in South Philly, right? They're not happening right now. So there's going to be a short supply of inventory. If and when interest rates do drop, the price is not dropping too. The price is actually going to go the other way.
So I think that if you look over time, right, that these fundamentals ebb and flow, right, and there becomes a cycle where things slow down until demand catches back up, and then there's an oversupply until the demand catches back up, right, and so right now, we're in an area where there's not enough supply, right, and so it's going to be interesting to see how the government will step in and help with the supply issues, right?
They're almost going to have to.
That's right. There needs to be a solution because if you continue on the current path, you're 100% right. Most people will never own a home. And so there'll be another cycle. Things are going to slow down now, right?
We're starting to get calls from GCs being like, "Hey, do you have any clients that are looking for?" When you that starts happening, you know that things are softening.
Yeah,
very much so.
Yeah. I think, depending on the markets you're in, there's definitely GCs calling us now like, hey, what's the next project, right?
Well, in 4 years, when the government gives me money, I'll be ready.
Exactly. But no, there's a lot of challenges that go along with that, right? And so I think that, we'll see how the next, call it 6 to 12 months shake out.
Because it's like it has to get all the way through, right? Like, all right, if I'm the builder, right, and I'm not purchasing, lumber, right, then the price of that lumber yard is going to drop their prices, so the prices become cheaper. But then the guys they're getting their trees from and cutting it down, that price is going to have to drop. And then
if you
follow this path all the way back,
you got it. Generally, if you look at construction costs over a long period of time, they actually never come down. They sort of soften or flatten, but or not go up at the same pace, but. Generally, construction costs don't actually ever come down as a whole. Certain materials may come down, but other materials go up, and so
it's going to be when if and when those interest rates do drop, and now stuff starts heavily again. Well, why reduce the price? It's still going to that's an interesting fact. I never thought of that.
Yeah. So rates will come down, plus salaries hopefully will continue to increase, and you'll be in this same cycle of there'll be times where housing is more affordable and times where housing is less affordable.
Yep. And achievable. I mean, it's $141,000, and that's combined income for a couple to have
that's
to be
right.
able to get into
a basic starter home.
Yeah. And that's just in this market.
That's right.
Yeah, so you're not going to California or it's crazy. Or New York. How do you get a condo in New York? You can't. It doesn't exist. Or it does exist.
No, a lot of those folks are coming down to Philly.
They're coming to Philly. Everyone, come to Philadelphia. We're here. Great. So let's go into. So we chat about Odin. It's amazing what you guys are doing, the level of impact you're making, the amount of people. Right. By the way, how many people are at Odin right now? In the office?
So I think company-wide, right, which includes a lot of site-level folks, we're about 260, 270 employees. And of that, maybe about 40 are corporate office.
Corporate, finding deals, acquisitions, pre-development.
No, so that's that's a very small piece of that, right? It's HR, it's accounting, it's the construction team, it's the high-level operations folks, right? And so you put all that together, there's about 40 of us.
Yeah, great. It's gotta be fun. Where's your offices at? We're in Philly.
We're at 1500 Market, right across from City Hall.
Everyone knows that building, so it's right there. All right, let's get into. I want to dive now into Justin Kaplan entrepreneur stuff, right? Or, I want to understand a little bit about. You said originally you had built a business and it failed. Let's start getting into some entrepreneurship lingo. Failure is also, it could be looked at as a good thing.
That's right.
From it, right?
That's right. I would say take risks, right? Especially when you're young. I took some risks growing up, but I wish I would have taken more. That's my one piece of, advice.
Don't wait till you're 70 years old.
That's
to
right.
start a business.
Take the risks. While you still have time to recover, right? So we graduated, we started a business. It didn't go well. In the grand scheme of things, 15 years later, failure has no financial impact on where I'm at today, but the amount of experience that I gained from that has sort of driven my thought process and how I deal with a lot of things moving forward. And so take risks, take them younger, especially if you can learn on somebody else's dime. If you can figure out a way to take a risk on somebody else's behalf, do it, go for it, learn, and take the lessons that you get from those failures moving forward. I completely forgot about this, but back in high school, I had started a t-shirt company that I called Just Tees.
Just Tees.
Yeah.
All right.
Went and got a t-shirt press, like old school t-shirt press, and used my dad's copier at his office to print out like the decals that you would press onto a t-shirt, and went around to local businesses and just like convinced the pizza shops to let me make logoed t-shirts for the delivery drivers.
I love
right.
That.
So yeah.
You ever get the itch to do it again to get a machine or?
I'm good. I'll pass on that one. It was
so entrepreneurship for you. So we talk about, because you're like, just take the risk. Like, some people listening might be like, Justin, you're freaking nuts. Like, I'm not just gonna leave my job. I'm just gonna like, how do you get in the mental psychology to be like, right? You're a psychology major over here for businesses and organizational growth. What does it mentally have to take for someone to try to take the risk? What could I say to myself to be like, I have to do this?
Yeah, I think, look, certain people are more risk adverse than others, right? And some people have a natural tendency to take bigger risks. And I don't think that, you have to risk it all, right? Taking a risk doesn't necessarily mean quit your job today, pull out everything in your 401k or your savings account and go blow it. Like, it's not a gamble, right? These are calculated risks. And so it's like, if you're ready to take the leap and start a business, okay, and you're okay where you're at in your current role or your current job, spend 6 months, kind of figure it out. Maybe it doesn't even have to be 6 months. Maybe it's 3 months. Create a plan, create a calculated risk, plan, and begin to execute on it. And the best way to do that is surround yourself with the people who've done it before and get their opinion and say, hey, here's my plan. What am I missing? What am I not thinking about? Where's my pitfalls? Where's my blind spots, right? Because it's great to say like, oh, I'm going to go jump off that cliff, right? And somebody goes, hey, by the way, did you pack your parachute? Right? So it's nothing wrong with jumping off the cliff, but have all the tools you need to be prepared to do it.
Talk about, because one of the things that isn't said a lot in entrepreneurship, and you start your business, you said you failed, but it's a learning experience. But talk about the sacrifices. Any sacrifice, because the one thing we all have that we all share in common, people listening, you, me, is that we all have the same 24 hours in a day.
That's right.
Right. That's the one common across all of it.
Yeah.
And we have a sun that goes up and down, and whether the Earth's flat or not doesn't matter. We know the sun's there. We know that we all have the same 24 hours in a day. But what sacrifices have you had to make, and that you're comfortable sharing, that enabled you to move forward in your career and your businesses and that?
Yeah, I think so. It's a great question. One of my favorite sayings, right, is do for 5 years what others won't, and then do for the rest of your life what others can't.
Yep.
Right. And so making sacrifices isn't a permanent adjustment, right? And so it's instead of, going out on a Thursday night, it's stay home, read, and learn a new skill.
Yep.
Right. And figure out how can I apply this better in my day to day that's going to take what I'm doing today, make it easier.
Yep.
So that I can work smarter and not harder. And so I think, again, brokerage was a very
that's a sacrifice.
Great, interesting lifestyle, right? But at the same time, if I wasn't putting the sacrifices in to focus on the business, that's 100% commission, right? Yeah. And so there were times where I had to choose between going to a family function or focusing on the task at hand,
Yep.
or going out with friends or focusing on the task at hand. And so you have to find a balance, and you shouldn't give it all one way or the other.
Yep.
It's about finding that balance.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, it's easy to look back and be like, oh yeah, that sacrifice was worth it. But like at the time when those have to happen, like I remember like when we were starting Designlands, I'm in my row home, and like, you know, there's friends come over from other roommates, like, oh, we're all going to the bar, and I'm just like, dude, I can't, like, you know, like I got to work on this website, like I'm writing this blog about it. Like, it's crazy. Like, I look at it, I sacrificed that night out to write like a blog article.
Yeah.
About something we were doing, but like, it's crazy is what that led to.
That's right.
To the next blog that led to this, that led to that. It's like, you know, at that moment, I should have easily been like, I'm going out with all these chicks and we're going to go have a great night out. Like, but I didn't.
Right.
Like, I think it's almost like you have to just try to imagine what the future could be if you just gave that immediate thing up, right? It's like if I go and drink whiskey every night, right? I'm having a whiskey after with dinner, and like all of a sudden, 3 years from now, I know I'm going to be an extra 30 pounds.
That's right.
Versus like, I'm going to have one whiskey a week, but I'm going to change the other 6 nights to water with dinner.
Yeah.
Maybe I now only be 5 pounds. Right? Like, it's like, you know, to me, I that's probably been the hardest thing to truly understand as an entrepreneur. Like, there's always sacrifice, always has to be made. But then at a certain point, you're able to reduce some sacrifices to slow down, or sacrifice again to speed up for short periods of time.
You know, it's interesting. Sacrifice is an interesting word too, right? Because it's really about where's your focus.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you can reframe and say, look, I'm focused on my business, I'm focused on my growth.
Yep.
What are the actions that are going to help do that?
Yep.
Guess what? If I go out and party, then I'm sacrificing my business.
Correct.
Right. And so it's reframing the situation. It's like, okay, I'm not really sacrificing my social life, right? Because I can do social things within my business. So it's where's your focus, and finding out what are the things that are important to you, and really sticking with those and driving forward.
Let's get into some other passion. What else do you do outside of real estate development, growing business? Like, you know, I see you're involved in some foundations. Like, talk to me a little bit about what keeps you sane in other areas of your life.
Yeah, so I actually sit on the board of the KB Foundation. The KB Foundation is run by Kirk Berry, and I've known Kirk for, you know, a dozen years. And his foundation is a mentor-based experiential program for inner city youth, as sort of like an anti-gun violence program to show them that there's other ways of life, right? And so one of the things he did was start a summer camp a number of years ago, where he was bringing, I think he started his first camp was only like 15 kids or so, to the Lehigh Valley for a 5-day overnight camp. These kids are probably like, I think they were a mix of like Norristown and South Philly, and like they never left their area, right? And he pulls them out, plants them in the woods in a cabin, and just like exposes them to life, right? And so
team building stuff, like
that's right. He gets mentors up there that teach like how to change a tire in a car. He gets folks up there that teach them karate. He gets military folks up there that teach them what boot camp is. He gets finance guys to come up and teach financial literacy, right? And that's so cool. He has a guy comes up and teaches them archery, right? These kids and they're probably like, what the hell? Like, it's got to be amazing. Right?
That's amazing.
He teaches them. Somebody comes up and brings like STEM models, and they like put these together and like try to teach them how to like drive in a circle, right? These little models that like drive in a circle, and so it's like about exposure for these kids, just to show that there's another way of life, right?
And that's so impactful, because those are like the moments that you remember growing up that like have changed you or set you on a different path.
That's right. And so it started with the camp, but now over the last, half a dozen years, he's really grown and built it and added a bunch of programming. They do a lunch and learn program, where he brings anywhere from, depending on what a company can hold, anywhere from 10 to 30 kids to a local company. I think they just did one at like Holt Logistics.
Oh, cool.
He brought a bunch of kids down, showed them like cranes and how all logistical stuff and import-export stuff works, and exposed them to that. They have like a My Buddy and Me reading program where they partner them up for younger kids and show them how to read. They do in the summers, they do like a weekend basketball camp where they come in and they do tutoring for 2 hours and then play basketball for 2 hours.
Yep.
But if they miss the tutoring or they're late to tutoring or they goof off, like they don't get to play basketball, right?
It's great.
And then one of the things that recently just started is an international exchange program where they're sending like 8 to 10 kids to the Ivory Coast of South Africa, right, for like a week or 8 days, with the intent that to grow this program, they'll be able to send more kids over. And then eventually they partner up with local kids their age there, and they spend the week together and just get exposed to a different lifestyle. And then eventually get the kids from South Africa to come over here and do like an exchange program, right?
That's great.
And so I'm actually going to be one of the chaperones on the trip this summer that's going over to the Ivory Coast. So I'm like super pumped about that.
That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And rewarding too. That's like, you're going to be like a kid. You're going to be down there like playing. Like, that's great.
Yeah. So, I mean, it won't be fun and games because I'll be responsible for, a bunch of kids that are going to have very opinionated feelings about being away from home. So, it'll be work, but it'll be an amazing experience at the same time.
Yeah. I'm just like, got my head spinning about like, just like the impact of that. And like, you're literally changing generations on generations of like direction, and
that's right.
People doing the right thing. It's amazing.
Yeah. So I'm a big supporter of his, and anything I can do to help grow his organization.
Yeah. And how many kids a year do you think they affect now? Because it started with 10 or 15.
So the summer camp, I think they're up to about 60 young men that go to that. They started a girls' camp about 2 or 3 years ago, and I think they're up to about 20 or 25 young women that go to that. But I would say the overall impact is something like in excess of 200 kids a year that
that's amazing.
That they're impacting.
That's great. That is like, it's just the reason I asked so many, like, you don't realize these things exist out there, right? To the common person, it's like, there's people doing good, but these aren't the stories we're typically used to turning on a TV and hearing. But like, ABC should do a whole segment and like a whole 6 to 7 p.m. news story about that.
We actually just got a news story on the international trip to Ivory Coast that just happened this past summer. So I'll send you the link to that to take a look at it. It's pretty cool.
As we get towards the end here, there's so obviously we can keep going for hours. We get like I could ask you the craziest story of Taiwan, like whatever, like we could get into so much, right? But like one of the things that I always want for my guests is like, over the years of from you starting in business or being involved in other organizations, like people have said stuff to you, right? And it's like, what has been said to you that's made the most impact to like how you operate every day, right? Like, is there like a one-liner that you remember a mentor telling you? And I'll give an example. One of my mentors had told me, he goes, Brian, you got to hit every rung of that ladder, because if you don't hit every rung and you slip and fall, you're going to crack your front teeth. But no one ever said you can't run up that ladder. Just got to hit every rung, right? Like it's the things like that like someone tells you, just like, you're nuts, but like it impacts you and how you operate day to day. Give me a one-liner that someone's told you that's stuck with you.
That's a great one. I might
you can steal it. Steal it. Just pass it down.
No, I don't know if I have like a specific one-liner, but there was something recently that kind of brought my whole history together and like put it into perspective. And it was like, take ownership, right? And so it's not just about like taking responsibility for work you've done or accepting responsibility for a task you're going to do, but it's taking ownership as a whole to make sure that the job gets done, right? Like, what are the results? And I don't care how we have to get there, but I'm going to make sure that we achieve those results. Like, I'm going to own the project. I may assign it. I may have staff that works who maybe assign specific tasks to get to the end result, but I'm going to take ownership as the senior level executive to make sure that the whole job gets done, because I can't turn around at the end of the day and go, oh, I'm sorry, my associate or my analyst screwed this up. Like, that's not an acceptable response, right? And so it's just about taking ownership.
I want to dive in because no one said that. So for your first person to say something like that and at least take ownership, I operate the same way, but I use it as I say it a different way. I say it's my fault, right? Whenever a problem occurs, right, it's getting in that mindset that problem occurred because of you. Yeah. Not because of somebody else, not because my employee didn't follow a training, or that this person, we didn't get back, or that client didn't give us what we needed to make that project successful. No, it's not the client's fault. It's my fault.
That's right.
And if you can get in that mindset and accept that, your life changes, your business changes, everything about how you operate changes. That's such an important.
That's right.
It's so, and it takes some people their whole life to figure that out, which is sad.
Yeah. No, and I'll do it. I'll tack on to what you're saying, right? Like, that's the inverse of it. But I like the idea of taking ownership, because if I take ownership, I'll make sure that it gets done, so I don't have to say, "Oh, my fault." Right?
Yeah, exactly.
If I've taken ownership before it even started, hopefully I've managed to do a good job or be successful, so I don't have to turn around and say, "Oh, my fault."
We have in our organization, one of the things we're big on is we have a function chart. We don't have an org chart at Design Ones. We have a function chart. And it's if you looked at the whole organization and go, what needs to get done from running payroll to HR to doing drawings, right? There's functions. One of the things that we've stressed a lot in the last couple of years is the difference between responsibility and accountability. And this goes into the ownership. It's like, no, the difference is, so what's the difference? The difference is the person responsible is whose it falls on. But there may be other people around that responsible party that are accountable to raise their hand if they see something wrong.
That's right.
Doesn't mean that they're not at fault too.
Is it SEPTA? See something, say something?
Yeah, exactly. If you see something, say something. But yeah, that's that little concept there that you just described about like taking ownership. It's like, I mean, it took me years to figure it out. I mean, that person, they really screwed me, or like, no, like, it was my fault. I'm not savvy enough in business to not have been screwed by that person. It's like they say, take the high road. Like, there's so many analogies around it, but it's truly getting into an understanding that it all stems from you. Yeah. Right. If you showed up late to my podcast today, I would have been like, Justin's late. I would have said, did we give him the right directions? Did he not park? Oh my God, maybe he couldn't find parking. I should have got him a parking pass, right? Like,
that's right.
It's that different mental switch that some people just can't figure it out. Yeah.
And I think it's also what, in your climbing the ladder, right, is what helps you get to the next rung, right? Yeah. So you have a shift in the mentality of the younger working force today, and a lot of them will show up at start time and end time is 5 o'clock, 5:01, they're out the door. Yeah. Right. And it's like, okay, I was told to do XYZ. I got XYZ done. I'm out.
Not a problem.
Right. But if you take ownership of the task and figure out like, okay, I did the task, but like, how does that play into the overall picture, and how do I help have a successful project, and what's my role in creating a successful project, that will help propel people to the next rung faster.
Yeah. I like that. What else did I miss? What else anything else people need to know about Justin Kaplan and the impact and positive impact you're making on sitting on boards, on developing development that's affordable for people? Like,
I think you hit it all, man.
No, Justin, I really appreciate you coming on today. I feel like we touched a lot of different topics, all different ranges. We started in Taiwan. We were in California, PA. We're back in Philly. We're, Odin's in 15 different MSAs operating. Like, just the amount of impact that and knowledge that you brought to the listeners today is just truly, we're grateful for it. So I just want to say thank you again for your time today coming on. And
I would say, again, we're talking about building businesses, right? Odin's been around for 14, 15 years, but as an affordable housing development company, we're still fresh, right? So have me back in a couple of years. And let's talk about how we've built.
You've
what's
already
next.
made a massive impact. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be crazy. You guys started a little mini summer camp, and I'm excited to see what that summer camp's going to turn into. So
That's right.
That's great. So, Justin,
Great.
thanks again.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.